Hi, my name is Liz Barrett Riley, and I am a breath worker and intercultural business coach for the past 25 years. And Sonia asked me to speak about Crossroads. And of course, we've all had many crossroads in our lives. And when I was deciding what I wanted to talk about, I decided it would be my crossroads with grief. And especially during this time, I believe people have lost a lot and are grieving a lot at unprecedented levels than ever before. So my desire is that this supports you and gives you hope and possibly some guidance. So my story is, and I don't talk about this a lot, but sometimes we talk about the dark night of the soul. So it was one of mine. And I had, for a very long time, not been able to get pregnant. And so I got pregnant. I was overjoyed. And in a relationship that I thought was where I was supposed to be. And during this time, a good friend of mine, her cancer became terminal. So there was some difficulty and sadness in that. And literally in the span of a few months, I lost the baby. My friend died and my partner left me. So I was pretty devastated. And I was like, geez, like when you hope for something for so long and then you receive it and then you feel like it's taken away. I was devastated. I felt broken. And there was a choice that I had. People were uncomfortable with my grief. People felt, I'm outgoing. I'm fun. I'm enthusiastic. And I didn't have the capacity for that at that time. And the choice I made was to be true to what I was feeling, to go through or to do everything I could to turn it off and present as I always have, like nothing was wrong. And because the grief was because the loss for me is so compounded, it was so much that like I almost didn't have a choice, right? It was almost like, you've done that so well before. So God and the universe is like, well, we're going to make it. So like, you can't fake it this time, right? And I didn't. I didn't resist it. I didn't push it down. I can even almost go back to that feeling of the heaviness in the body, like that, and just the deep, deep sadness. Yeah. And so when I chose to face the grief full on, it helped me to move through the process much more quickly than if I had resisted it. And I'm not saying it was easy, or it didn't feel painful, but it reminds me of having like feel that deep pain and then you're out of it. or it's like, let that pain be prolonged over 15, 20 years. So, and I also made the choice to pray for the support that I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how. And it's not like I'm foreign to psychotherapy or support like that. I mean, my father's a psychiatrist and my mother is a psychiatric nurse. So, anytime someone would get in an argument in our family, we'd see a therapist. So that wasn't that wasn't something that I was resistant to, but I knew that I needed something more than that, right? And I around this time, a dear friend of mine broke her back, and she lived in Arizona, and at the time I was in the Chicago area, and her husband had taken off work for several months to care for her and help her, and he was going back to work, and she was nervous about being on her own with some limited mobility. So I told her that I would, take a week off and come help her and support her. And as I'm at the airport about to fly to Arizona, I think she called me and said, my mother broke her back and I'm flying to Chicago. Right. And I'm like, well, geez, what should I do? And she's like, just go to Arizona, have a good time. You can stay at my house. And so I was like, well, I always wanted to go to Sedona. It's this area outside of it's about 2 hours, an hour and a half from Phoenix in the mountains, beautiful red rock, very spiritual place. And it just so happened that weekend was the Sedona Yoga Festival. And I'm a yogi, right? As you can tell with my background and my cup. I even used to own a yoga studio. So I was really excited. I and I hadn't felt that in a long time, right? I was like, wow, this is just fortuitous and all in flow, and it felt good. And so there was a session. I had no idea what it was about, but I just felt like I needed to go. So that was another decision I made. I was following what was guiding me. Like I wasn't looking for the understanding of how, but I was feeling where, like almost physically, which direction to move. And so I did. And it happened to be a breathwork session. And I had such an immense experience that in this process, like in this 90-minute session, the grief just lifted from my body. And at the end, at the completion, I felt such joy and peace and support. And it was the support that I had been praying for. It was my answered prayers. And so the decision I made at this crossroad to guide me to this healing was that I needed to bring this to my clients. And this is years ago, so I became certified as a breath worker and, been providing the service for my clients at the highest level ever since. With just as miraculous outcomes and experiences, beyond my own, actually. So, yeah. So that's my story. Some of the decisions I made. So for the fear, sure, yes, that the pain, that it would consume me, but more is that if I gave into it, it would break me. Like that I wasn't strong enough. And I was, but that was a fear. Like I'm not gonna be able to handle this. Mhm. And I believe that the decision was intuitive. Like I knew to go through this process in a way that was, let's just say, healthy, for lack of a better word. I needed support and help. Like there was no way I could go through it without the support of the processes and the people in my life that I had. The breath work, my therapist, friends and family, my dogs. And so the decision was making was definitely, I want to say, more intuitive, but even more so, it was like my body intelligence was making the decision. Like there was like a physical, like knowing, like that was like giving me like turning me in certain directions and telling me yes or no, or and that eased the process for sure. Yeah.
So it's like listening that inner voice, knowing in a way what is it that you want and you need.
And yes, exactly. But I had I knew what I needed, but I had no idea how it would happen. I couldn't have planned it. Um, so there was a surrender to how the healing would happen. There was a trusting in the right people, and what I needed would be put in front of me. So the other decision, I had to let go of control of curing it. And I like to, I like to be in control. Yeah. And healing doesn't come from controlling. And it sucks to say this, right? We all know we wish it did. Yeah. So there was a surrender to it for sure.
There's also the paradox that you need, in a way, to be in control of yourself in order to command yourself to let go and to surrender. It's like this paradox.
It is a paradox, and it's a paradox that creates cognitive dissonance, right? It's like, and so in the past, in other circumstances, like using the mind to figure it out has always made it worse, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that the hard way.
And for someone standing at the same crossroads now where you were standing back there, how would you maybe summarize in a nutshell an advice from your perspective?
So one thing I think that's important for all of us to remember is that people have different capacities to be in discomfort with others in their grief. And so one of the things, the capacity that I've developed through the tragedies I've experienced in my life, and I've got more, I've got some other ones, of course, but is that I have the capacity to sit with people in their grief without needing to change anything about their experience. And I would say, find be, that's who you need to sit with. That's who you need to be supported with, right? That's who will help you move through this time with so much ease. And I mean, after this period, I had just client after client whose spouses had died or children had died. Like, and I was like, geez. And I could just sit with them and they could just be in that heart-wrenching pain. And they didn't need to do anything, change anything. It was fine. Mhm. Yeah. So I would also, so with that being said, support, it's critical. You know, for me, and for my clients, breath work has been a lifesaver because it is a process of surrendering and, you know, being with what is in a very profound way. So I highly recommend that as well. Some kind of, especially like a physical practice to move grief, because grief is very physical, very physical. Anybody who's gone through this knows that, like the exhaustion, the heaviness, the lethargy. Well, and then, I mean, the surrender to it and being in it, right? I mean, so that is, it is mandatory. It is the first step. That willingness to sit in that pain, whew, takes some courage.